Good evening and welcome to Left, Right and Centre. I'm Vishnu Shom. We've got a packed program for you tonight. First, the Corps Commander of the Srinagar Corps of the Indian Army, 15 Corps Commander, Lieutenant General DP Pandey joins me in a little while from now. We talk about the threat of drones and the entire issue of maintaining the peace on the line of control. Remember, this has been a great year so far. On the LOC, there hasn't been cross-border shelling. But what does these drone attack in Jammu actually imply for the line of control? That's going to be our big focus. Next up on this very exclusive program, we've got the president of Novavax, Stanley Erk, who joins us for an exclusive interview where he tells us about the new vaccine, Novavax vaccine in India called Novavax, which should be rolled out in the next couple of months. How much will it cost? How effective is it? Will it take on the Delta variant? This is a world exclusive interview on a vaccine which is going to be sold in huge numbers in this country. But first, let's just bring you a couple of details about this entire issue of the threat of drones before we go to our interview with the 15 Corps Commander. Firstly, there is a comprehensive policy on rogue drones which are going to be coming soon. India has in fact identified the technology to tackle rogue drones, and a lot of this is actually going to be based around, to start with, what we actually have in India. This is a DRDO supplied drone. It's already being used by security forces. For example, during Independence Day, it's being used. So it essentially jams the frequencies in which small drones operate. The Prime Minister has discussed various strategies to counter weaponized drones used for terror purposes. Remember, there is a real sense now after the attack in Jammu when a couple of drones came and dropped IEDs and actually damaged a building fairly substantially. That India needs to be aware of this threat. It's existed now for a while. India needs to be serious. There are technologies in place to counter that. Imperfect technologies, it needs to be said. But it has to be done to keep one step ahead of terrorists. It's this constant cat and mouse game, and it appears with this attack in Jammu, they are presently one step ahead. So the Prime Minister has discussed strategies. The Indian Air Force will be the nodal agency to deal with such technology. And so what technology are we actually dealing with over here? Well, the National Technical Research Organization will also be roped in for assistance, and there will be deployment models which will consist of radio frequency detectors, electro-optical sensors, and infrared cameras and radar. So let me just explain this to you, because this is what this is all about. It's actually systems like this that you see over here through which jamming actually takes place of the various radio frequencies. The goal being to cut the link between the remote control drone operator, this is assuming it's a small drone, and the drone itself, causing it to actually lose control, fall to the ground. Then you've got various electro-optical sensors. So this is an electro-optical sensor. It could be paired to an infrared camera. An electro-optical sensor actually visually picks this up over a couple of kilometers so that it can be identified and, if necessary, shot down. Shooting it down is the next step. We aren't talking about that over here, but those are some of the big challenges. Many of these points I discussed with General Pandey in this exclusive interview. The drone strike on the Jammu Air Force Station is a reminder that the battle against terrorism is constantly evolving. The nature of the threat itself changes. Technology, training, surveillance, and the ability to retaliate when necessary always needs to be one step ahead. The drone strike comes at a time when there is peace along the line of control after more than a year of some of the most intense duels, which really begs the question, are these efforts an attempt to try and end the peace that we have? Joining us now, the senior officer with the awesome responsibility of maintaining peace along the line of control and the Kashmir Valley, Lieutenant General DP Pandey, the Corps Commander of 15 Corps in Srinagar. Thank you, sir, very much for being with us. So you've, how serious is the threat of the drone strike in your area of responsibility? Obviously, it's a concern for everyone. How do you view this new threat which has emerged?
Well, Vishnu, firstly, it's great to see you after some time.
Yes, it is, sir.
Yes, I must share as a starting remarks that possibly the security situation in Kashmir Valley today is possibly at one of the best times in last about 5 years, with all the security parameters showing very, very great positive trends, in spite of some strikes which have taken place by the terrorists in the recent times. But when you compare it in terms of last about 5 years, we find that ceasefire has sustained on the line of control, and in the hinterland, the terrorist-initiated incidents and TCAs have come down drastically. Overall, the security parameters remain very, shows great positive trends. Coming on to the question specific about the drone technology and drone threat, in Indian Army, we have been cognizant of this developing worldwide disruptive technology, which is now being utilized both in the realm of conventional and sub-conventional. Conventional, we have just seen in this recent conflict which happened in the CR region. And of course, at number of times in last about 2 years, we have seen strikes having taken place in the sub-conventional domain as well. So while there have been systems in place, but this recent strike has definitely asked us to carry out a more deliberate and focused effort towards tackling this threat. We are well aware that these assets, the technology to support drone warfare, it cannot be just made on the roadside. These are state-supported systems. These technologies are available with state systems, and this support which is there of state sponsors are definitely with Jaish and Lashkar. So while we are aware of these threats, we have taken much advanced measures in the last few days. We have reoriented ourselves to look after these threats onto our important installations within the valley itself. This threat is live. It is going to be keep on increasing, and we have to stay some steps ahead to definitely counter it, take control of these drones which carry out a strike into our sensitive areas and installations. We have got some local systems available, but yes, as a entire army, we are looking at very, very proactive solution on this subject, and I'm very sure that we will be able to take care of this challenge as well.
General, did these drones, to the best of your understanding, fly across in that area, or were they locally operated? Because that's obviously something that in your area of responsibility would be a similar threat. You know, either it flies across, which would imply it's larger, more sophisticated, or if it's locally, then you would need to tackle it at a different level.
Please understand that firstly, this investigation is already ongoing. To comment upon prematurely may not be very correct. But when we carry out the analysis, the capabilities and capacities exist to carry out modification on commercially available drone systems, which are quite locally available as well. With certain degree of guidance from state actors, they can be modified to carry out these attacks locally. So the ranging from 5 kilometers to 15 kilometers to a longer ranges, these capabilities exist all across. It just requires certain degree of ingenuity and innovation to use certain degree of explosives and breach the installation security systems and come across and carry out these strikes. So while everybody is quite alert and sanguine of this challenges, but these will be able to reach at some places or other. But yes, we need to be aware. We need to look at technologies which can take control of these drones. They may be quadcopters, they may be standalone flying drone systems and such like things. But we need to have those systems in place, and I can assure you that we are working on it.
In fact, we just had a picture of that DRDO designed drone. I think it was deployed on Republic Day. That's one of the technologies available for you already in India. The real worry, sir, of course, are drone swarms. Typically, and it's evolving technology, low level, but there is an element of coordination between drones. The idea being to maximize or to saturate a target with drones. Again, is that something that I know you're aware of, or the system is aware of, but what sort of threat would that represent?
Well, look, when there is a new technology in place, everything is on the table. And but currently, I can assure you of the valley per se. The major important aspect is about the end part. There is a certain degree of synergy which is required to be done with the police, with civil adam and such like things, in which there is a requirement of carrying out data mapping. You require to have to find out who all have ownership of such drones, or area. We need to have systems in place wherein we ensure that such like facilities or systems are not allowed to be used in the proximity of sensitive installations and such like things. So while all these things will remain on table, starting from single piece of intruding system to a strong system. But currently I feel that that challenge immediately may not be pertinent here in our scenario. More so with the great synergy which we have with the civil atom, the police and the local CAPF forces, which we are carrying out actually a saturation of the areas around our sensitive installations. So while the technology may be existing, capabilities may be existing, but the strong thing is slightly way off as of now.
Okay. Now, General, let's just talk about your area of responsibility. Now, you know, I think it was the Army Chief and the Army Commander who said that the onus of holding the ceasefire is on Pakistan. Thus far, do you believe that that ceasefire is holding, that there may be some forces which may be beyond the Pakistan Army which are doing this drone business?
Look, I will not like to detach the accountability and responsibility on these drone systems from Pakistan per se. There will be reasons of deniability, but frankly, the control and levers continue to exist across the border. And that responsibility will always be resting at that location. It starts in the terms of radicalization, it starts in terms of proliferating and trying to control elements on this side. It continues within the realm of funding, which is greatly under control because of very, very proactive actions taken by the government of India and NIA to ensure the state funding reduces. The realm of narco-terrorism is under great control because Jammu Kashmir police has been quite proactive, picking up elements which are supporting this network of narco smuggling, which enables and funds the terror support infrastructure which continues to exist in Kashmir Valley or Jammu and Kashmir per se. But coming on to the issue of security, the line of control ceasefire aspect as well, I must confess that it has been holding, the people across have been holding their end of the bargain. We also continue to ensure that ceasefire holds as far as they hold their part of bargain
Yes.
On the table. They continue to behave on those lines. That is, they need to continue to reduce and give the signatures that they are not going to be supporting the terror infrastructure in our country. But the biggest beneficiary, I must tell you, of this entire ceasefire has been our own people across along the border, along the line of control. Because frankly, every time when there was an invitation to be supported by the people across, they targeted the civilian population, and when they got punished, they further targeted our own people because they understand that Indian Army is much, much more worried about our own people which are on this side of the border, this side of the line of control. And therefore, for us, I think it was a great step to ensure that we took forward this request from the people across for maintaining ceasefire for some time.
Sure.
And let's see how it happens.
Right.
But yes, this will hold only till the time a major strike does not take place. We must continue to hold them responsible for the support of terrorist infrastructure.
One final question very briefly, running short on time. I think one of the finest things that the Army has done in the last 1 year is to vaccinate. Of course, in the case of the Indian Army, if an order is given, that's it, you do vaccinate. But I think it sends a very strong message to people across the country. In your area of responsibility, can you describe how effectively soldiers, men and women, have been vaccinated in the Army?
Yeah, this is a very good one, good question, Vishnu. This is a time of national and global challenge in terms of management of COVID challenges. But, you know, for Chinar Corps, for 15 Corps, which is deployed in Kashmir, our challenge was not, our focus was not only force preservation. Of course, that was a primary concern. But please understand that we live amongst the people. We live amongst the Kashmiri people who are our mainstay. We are moving through them. We are working through them. We are working with them all the time. So we had to look at two different parameters. One was to ensure force preservation, which was the order of our chief, and our forces, our troops, while deployed in contact operation with civilians, managing in hinterland, road opening parties, contact with, at multiple levels we are contacting with the civilians and such things. To the extent that our line of control deployment, high altitude areas where barely our choppers could reach, we had isolated posts where we required to reach out to them to vaccinate those soldiers, men and women in uniform. We were able to do with a very, very great concerted effort. But while doing so, we have achieved nearly 99%. Only those people who are having medical reasons for which they can't be vaccinated are the only ones which are left out.
So 99% with 2 doses? 99% with 2 doses?
Yeah, nearly 99% with 2 doses. In fact, just about the second dose, we got about, I think about 2% are left out.
Right.
Of our,
that's fantastic, sir.
Because of aliens. Yeah. So we have, in fact, in the entire Northern Command, the control and the levers has been led by our command headquarters.
99% plus. That's pretty much all of the army in Kashmir. Some people will never get vaccinated for whatever the reasons are. But it's such a great sign that, you were able to do that. But thank you so much, General Pandey. It's always wonderful speaking to you about this, not just about vaccination, but obviously this new threat of drones and maintaining the peace, which is so important. Thank you, sir, very much for being with us.
Thank you, Vishnu. Thanks a lot for the time. Thank you.
One of the most anticipated vaccines in India is Novavax, manufactured by the Serum Institute. Novavax is in fact Novavax. It will be called Novavax once it's manufactured here. Now, results of Novavax indicate fantastic efficacy of 90% plus against COVID, and now the real battle is perhaps to roll out the vaccine as soon as possible. Joining us now on NDTV for a very special interview, Stanley Erck. He's the President and CEO of Novavax. Thanks very much, Mr. Erck, for being with us. I think we've got so many questions from our viewers. We've thought up some questions ourselves. So the first one is this: when will Novavax be introduced in the Indian market?
Well, great question. We're working very hard to introduce the vaccine on a global basis, and we partnered up with the Serum Institute because we thought that they would be the best global partner to get the vaccine around the world. And so we started tech transfer with them late last year. We've developing the process. We've conducted clinical trials that show that the vaccine, as you point out, the vaccine works extraordinarily well in phase 3 trials in the UK and in the US. We are in the last stages of preparing all of the clinical data, the safety data, and now the manufacturing data that has to go into a licensing package. And our expectation is that package will be complete very soon, certainly in the coming quarter.
Yeah. Have regulatory approvals for Novavax in the U.S. been delayed?
They have. We've been delayed a bit because we had all along we've had some troubles getting raw materials to make the product, to scale up, and to develop assays, because we started this process a year ago without any manufacturing capabilities and process development capabilities. So while we were running and getting clinical efficacy data and clinical safety data, we were way behind on the manufacturing data. So we had to run fast to build up that capability. And in part, that's why we've partnered with Serum Institute, because they have those capabilities. So we're getting there. It took a bit longer than we had hoped, but in both the U.S. and in the UK and in Europe and in India, all of those processes are coming together at roughly the same time.
And so what's the time period within which you expect regulatory approvals?
Well, we are hoping for regulatory approval, particularly in India, in the third quarter. MHRA, the UK, and Europe, we expect about the same time in the third quarter. The U.S. will be a bit longer because they've put in a process that says once you get to that stage where you submit your regulatory package, we want you to take another 30 days, an extra 30 days for us to process the data before you ask for emergency use. So that adds on another month to the U.S. on top of everybody else.
Right. Would India's emergency use authorization depend on this vaccine by being cleared elsewhere in the world? If not in the U.S., then in Europe or in any other regulator? Is that how it would work?
We think not. We think it's possible that the DCGI regulatory process will be independent of the other regulatory processes.
That's interesting. Now, again, another big question, does Novavax work against the Delta and the Delta Plus variant, which we are now reporting in India?
No, that's a great question. And in the trial that we just finished in the U.S., and it's important to note, we're the only company that has done large efficacy trials where there have been variants circulating. The early vaccines were done primarily in areas where you had the original Wuhan strain. So we're the only ones that have a vaccine data against the UK variant and some of the other variants worldwide. What we don't have, and just to point out, what we showed is that we have very high rates of efficacy when there are variants circulating. We had 100% protection against moderate and severe disease, and we were 93% protective against the variants that were circulating in our U.S. trial. What we did not show is anything against Delta, because Delta was not circulating during our trial. So we don't have those data yet, and so time will tell.
And so there are more tests being done to determine the efficacy against Delta. Is that something that's simultaneously happening now?
I think it is, and I think what our hope, and based upon the data that we have against a variety of variants, is that we will have a significant amount of efficacy against Delta. I just can't tell you what that number is yet, because we have not been in the trial where Delta has been circulating.
So tell us a little bit in terms of the manufacturing process here in India. How many doses do you expect to manufacture in India for India, and how important is this manufacturing for Gavi and for other countries around the world?
Yeah, I think that's really an important question, because the partnership is going to allow us to very rapidly scale up production, and without having made any decisions of which product goes to India versus some other countries, we actually paired up Serum Institute and Novavax and made a bargain, a contract with this group called COVAX to supply them 1.1 billion doses between Serum and Novavax. And so that our forecast for production is that between the two of us, we will be producing as many as 100 million doses a month by the end of the third quarter, by the end of this next quarter, and up to 150 million doses a month by the end of the fourth quarter of next year. So that allows us to get to the range of 2+ billion doses during 2022.
Yeah. And how much would each dose cost?
Well, it depends on where you make it, but we have taken the strategy of having tiered pricing, so that we will price to the lowest economic countries. They'll get the lowest price in the low single dollar price per dose, and that will go up for middle income countries and for high income countries.
And it's the same price for the first and second dose, right?
Same price for both doses.
All right. So in India, we've got Covishield, again manufactured by SII, which is about 200 odd rupees. So this would be a bit more pricey than that, right?
It's likely to be somewhat more pricey than that, yes.
Right. And as you mentioned, it's tiered. So when it goes to countries which are perhaps more wealthy, then it would be priced higher. Is that correct?
That's right. It's what we call equitable, equitable market access. Yes, equitable pricing. Based upon the ability to afford it.
So just one or two more questions. We don't talk, certainly in our country, about the need to vaccinate children enough. So the question is this, will this be effective for kids as well?
Yeah, we certainly believe it will be. In fact, both we and Serum Institute are conducting trials in adolescents and in 12 to 17-year-olds. We've got a trial going on, and I believe in India we'll be starting a trial in kids that are 2 to 17 years old at the same time. So it's very important to vaccinate young kids and adolescents.
And thus far you believe that, on the basis of the data you've seen, that it works as effectively for children and safely, most importantly?
We think it should be. We believe that we have a couple of advantages to our products, which include some of the best efficacy numbers of any vaccine, but we also have probably the most benign safety profile, and that should translate not only in adults but into children. And we have the added advantage that our vaccine is very stable and therefore can be shipped at standard refrigerated temperatures as opposed to having to freeze the vaccine.
So, everyone talks about mRNA vaccines, and that's great, but, you've got a slightly older technology which is as effective and perhaps more robust, certainly in transportation, right?
That's right. That's exactly right.
All right. Well, just a final question. The transfer of technology to Serum, the entire process of ramping up manufacture, how much of a challenge is that for you?
Well, in the beginning, we weren't sure because, of course, like all research projects, we start making product at let's say the 1 liter scale, but we knew to supply globally this product, we had to get into manufacturing containers that were maybe 4,000 or 6,000 liters, and we knew that would be a challenge. But we have now successfully made very high scale product at all of our facilities. So that's really important.
All right, Mr. Irk, thank you very much for speaking to us. There is a great deal of anticipation about this vaccine in India. We need vaccines and in sizable numbers. Hopefully this should be here sooner than later. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you for having me.